Hello there, how are you doing? This is my Team Losi XXX-S. To get the full title, XXX Touring Sedan. It is my favourite RC car of all time. It's not the most advanced RC car I own. I have many modern RC kits of all sorts. I also have a more modern variant of a Losi touring car, the JRXS Type R, which is the ultimate version of the later model that replaced the XXX-S. It's not the fastest RC car I own either, it's running a brushed power system. Many of mine, in fact most of mine, are brushless. So why is it my favourite RC car? Well, to answer that question you need to look no further than Snowboard Kids for the Nintendo 64. See? Makes perfect sense, right? What do you mean why? Look, Snowboard Kids is probably my favourite game from my childhood games console, which was the N64. It's not the best game on the N64, right? I will admit that. It is not the best game on the N64. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, arguably still the best game ever made on a console, according to Metacritic and all that sort of stuff. GoldenEye for the N64 is you know, revolutionised first-person gaming, and it's one of the greatest games ever made. Perfect Dark took that even further. Even Mario Kart 64 was technically superior to this. It had better graphics. Yeah, it did have better graphics. It had a bigger variant of game modes. It had more recognisable characters that were more appealing to more people. And there are many games on that console that would be considered better, and even in terms of the critical response and critical score. This is not a masterpiece, it's just a good game. However, to this day, well, sort of to this day, my best friend and his brothers, we can sit down, play this game, and the rivalry is still just as strong. Let me see here, 23 years later, after it was first released in 1997, we still, to this day, if we could plug an N64 in, which kind of is difficult with modern TVs because they have no attachment for that console, they have no interactivity because they don't have the right connectors. I really need to get my N64 HDMI modified. The point is, up to very recently when we last played it, we can still plug this thing in, and we still end up shouting and swearing at each other and getting extremely competitive, and it gets really personal, okay? And that has been going for over 20 years with this game. We've had some brilliant times with this, lots and lots of laughs, and even now, if I could get this running, if I showed up to their house, carnage, basically. My point being, happy memories, the memories you make, and the times you had with a product, whatever that may be, is superior to the material value of that product by a long way, if that makes sense. That's also true for this car. When I first started competitive racing in 2002, I started with a heavily modified HPI Sprint. Modifications included, but not limited to, some of the key ones were modified to fit saddle pack batteries, which moved the weight inboard, and I think, was it further forward or further back? I can't remember. It improved the centre of gravity. Adjustable turnbuckles everywhere. It had ball bearing differentials. All sorts of stuff going on with that car, and it was okay. It was alright. Still one of the worst cars at the club, but it was alright. The dominant cars were the Team Losi XXX-S's. There was also the associated TC3, which was a very good car. There was the Schumacher Mission, which was a very good car. But the Losi XXX-S was the dominant car. It was the best car in the world at the time. And I really wanted one. So for Christmas of 2002, that's what I got. And that car, this car, punted me up so many levels in terms of competitiveness. It just changed completely. The difference from the HPI was enormous, and I started winning races for the first time, and various trophies, etc, etc. And it's the good times involved in with this car, which is why it's still my favourite RC ever. I'll show you around the car if you haven't already seen it. I have not driven this car in its current iteration with this beautiful bitty design body shells, the bitty design Iscari, which looks very much like an Alfa Romeo. See that? Very much Alfa Romeo influenced. So that's good. I haven't driven it like this yet. I also haven't driven it with the current radio system, which is a 2.4 gigahertz Futaba T2HR system, which, yeah, like I say, I've never used it with it. A few more red metal upgrades since I last used it as well, but essentially that's all the same. Power system's the same. All the trophies behind me, all those, see them on the shelf, all because of this car. I also haven't ran it with the upgraded, these are the, see the shock absorbers there? Fully adjustable JRXS Type R shock absorbers and springs. The standard XXX-S shocks had collars to compress the spring. You slacken the collar off, set it, and then adjust it up, and eventually they strip out. So I've got these threaded shock bodies, and these, technologically a dinosaur of a car. Things have moved on a lot since I got this in Christmas of 2002, that's 18 years ago. This is the car I've owned for the longest time of everything I've owned. Nothing I own now I've owned for longer than this. But I'm never going to sell this car. This car's here forever. Absolutely adore it. It still runs sweet as a nut. It's running a Trinity Revenge of the Monster Pro. This is the last version of that motor. This is the quad magnet version, although not as good as the exceptional twin motor version I had before, just because I found a really good example, because they vary in terms of, you know, production finish, production quality, and they all have a dyno printout and they tell you which one each individual one's worth. So although fundamentally speaking a quad magnet one's better than a dual magnet one, I had an exceptional dual magnet one and it was actually better than this quad magnet one. Anyway, that's the M-Tronics M-Sonic 4 ESC, which is a forward only brushed ESC with no motor limit and an enormous Coke can of a smoothing capacitor there, see that? It's running I think it's an Altern USA servo. Not sure if I think I have ran it. Have I ran it with this? I'm not sure. I don't think so. Because my final year of running this, we ran in our homemade sort of for fun, just between friends, RC club a couple of years back. You might remember we'd recorded the last season on this channel. And I couldn't get the car to turn in. Couldn't get it to turn in at all. For the first time. I mean, I've had the car for a long time and it always handled really well, but I couldn't get it to turn in, so I had to go more and more aggressive for the setup, trying to get it more and more twitchy just to get it to rotate into the corner. I couldn't get it to do it, and I eventually just won the championship against Matthew. It was so close. It was decided in the final race. His TC3 was on rails, and I got this really aggressive, and it was quick, but it was an absolute nightmare to drive, and I just couldn't get it to turn in. So I figured I'll get a much faster servo. So I did. This is a faster servo than the one that was in it. It was using an old ACOMS or an old Futaba or something. It turns out, okay, the dual rate was turned down on my transmitter. Yeah, I know, what an idiot. Yes, I know. I had a XXX-S buggy, which was off the same platform, but it varied slightly in terms of the steering setup, and you would hit the steering limits earlier on the XXX-S, so you had to turn the steering down on the transmitter to save the servo, otherwise you'd hit your limits, and then any more input would just damage the servo because it couldn't go any further. So I had to turn down. I completely forgot about that when I sold my XXX-S, and the servo was only down to about 65%, which is why it wouldn't turn in. So yeah, that was my fault. So we're actually planning on going racing again in the future, hopefully soon. Obviously with this pandemic going on, it might be difficult. Maybe next year or something, I don't know. Hopefully the end of this year, but I'm not confident of that. I'll have steering again, although I will need to set up again right from the start. Not only just because I've got to go less aggressive and try and find that balance again, but I've also got completely new shock absorbers, completely new spring rates. The springs and shocks. The springs from the XXX-S shocks are not compatible with these shocks. These are smaller shocks, smaller diameter, smaller bore, beautifully smooth shock absorbers though. They're just the smoothest shocks I've ever built. Oh, they're beautiful. Anyway, there we are. I love this Losi. Love it. I raced the British champion once with this Losi. Finished about, he was a Losi team driver. Martin Wallace, his name was. Finished about 2.5 seconds behind him after a 5-minute race. I came last. There was 4 of us. There was him, Losi team driver. There was one other Losi team driver, I can't remember the name of. There was Gordon Dempsey, who was an HPI team driver. And then there was me, who was just a teenager. Finished right behind Gordon. We were all line astern at the end, so finished about 2.5 seconds behind the winner, the British champion. I was pretty pleased. Best race I ever driven, even though I finished last. Didn't make any mistakes. Was all over the back of Gordon, but I didn't want to take a risk of pranging into the back of an HPI team driver and sending him off the track or something. So tried it a few times, didn't get past him. Fair enough. Good times. Good times. My rival, Douglas Wood, also had a Losi XXX-S, and I said this before, we would finish thousandths of a second apart after a whole 5-minute qualifying round. It was ridiculous. That's how competitive we were, how very close we were. He also ran this exact car. Great times, great fun. This is not a standard XXX anymore. That is a graphite rather main chassis part, main chassis deck. There's also graphite. You see, there's graphite shock towers, graphite diff covers. And it's not all graphite yet. I don't know if it ever will be, but it's still got some plastic. It's pretty much there now. That's plastic. That's plastic. The 2 bumpers, the main center part here, the center rear, sorry, bottom cover, not rear cover. The bottom cover is graphite as well. The arms, I believe, are all graphite. Yes, they are. The hubs are all graphite. The links are all plastic. So yeah, it's not all there, but it's pretty good. I also like the red stuff. I haven't gone overboard. You could get red everything, red shock towers, red posts, red steering, ooh, that was close, red steering links. Didn't want to do that, too overboard. I just like the contrast between the red and the graphite and the black electronics. I'm going to go for full black electronics once I get my brushless system in this at some point in the future. It'll look nice. There we are. Memories are more important than the material itself. It's not the most expensive. Well, it kind of is, because you spend a lot when you're racing to stay competitive, but in terms of its value, material value now, not a lot. It's lovely though. It's in great condition. Still sounds sweet as a nut. It goes great. Hopefully I can get it handling great again, and it can bring more smiles for more years, which is what this hobby's all about, making memories with other people, which is the best thing about it, getting people together. You know, I wouldn't have been nearly as impactful in my life had I just been running it on my own in a car park or something somewhere. It's the memories competing against other people that make it great. And beating Matthew, obviously beating Matthew, because screw Matthew, you know, gotta beat Matthew. And it's TC3. So what's your favourite RC car of all time, and why? Specifically the why, because it doesn't matter the value of it. It might be a Tamiya TL01 that you got when you're 12 years old, and it's nostalgia. Whatever it is, I want to know about it. It might be a really expensive Arma because you hit 60 feet in the air and it landed and survived. You know, just let us know. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.